Welcome. I'm glad you're here this afternoon. I am Josephine Stepanzoff. I was born in Bavaria in 1905, and I was born into I was born into a family who were good business people, and they had very successful business in Bavaria. But my father was also very aware of the fact that World War I was imminent, and that our future would be in grave danger if we stayed. And so he packed us up and he moved us to Bozeman, Montana, where we established the Bonton Bakery. We established a Bonton Bakery in Bozeman, and one in Billings, and one in Missoula. And there was also a flour mill in Bozeman at that time to supply the flour that was needed for the bakery. At that time, we would do about 600 loaves of bread a day, and all sorts of other things that went with owning a bakery. And it was a very successful and wonderful business. And I had a great childhood growing up there. When it came time for me to go to college, I decided that I would go to the University of Montana. Language and writing was always a passion of mine, and so I chose the University of Montana because they had a wonderful English department, and I wanted to come here and study with them. And so I came here and I met a dashing young Russian man, very, very handsome young Russian man, and we fell in love. And as we dated at the University of Montana, he was instrumental in establishing the International Club, and I helped him with this. When Alex came to Montana, he had originally come from Russia to California. And in California, he was tending to run around with friends that were Russian and speak Russian all the time. And he said to one of his advisors, "I need to go to a school where I'm the only Russian-speaking person." So the professor said to him, "Well, I got a deal for you." So he sent him to the University of Montana, where he was the first international exchange student there. And he, of course, did learn to speak English, being here. Alex participated in a lot of musical things in his native Russia. And when he came to the United States, it was no different. He continued with all of that. And he also continued with that at the University of Montana, where I continued with my writing. I won a lot of awards for my writing, and I was published in a lot of literary magazines. And I'll read one of these poems for you right now. I tended to write about life. I wrote about death. I wrote about living and dying. I wrote about trouble and tragedy and just the real side of life. This particular poem that I wrote is called Rest Home. Sitting alone by a window, we found her at last. Our virtues, our freshness, and the results of our shopping. We piled them all in her lap. She turned from watching outside, and she listened and nodded and smiled and agreed, trying hard to be glad for our coming. But her glances kept wandering to the winter birds hopping and chirping and pecking. She tried to look sad at our going, but she was already gone with the sparrows outside. So that's entitled Rest Home. After I graduated from the University of Montana, Alex graduated the year before me in 1929 and moved to New York City to work for Chase Manhattan Bank. I joined him in 1930, and we were married in New York. When Alex went to work for the bank, he walked in and he saw the sign on the door, and it said banking hours 10 to 2. So he thought, well, that's going to be great. I'll be able to get home at a decent hour, because he had to take the train home. And so he thought that would be just fine. Well, as it turned out, he usually ended up taking that 11:30 p.m. train home. So his job was not what was considered banking hours. But we loved living in New York City because we both liked all sorts of things, like the culture and the music and the drama and all of the arts and things that we got to experience. It was wonderful for us to be there. And we also made a number of trips to Europe. We loved to sail, to get on the big ocean liners and go to Europe and experience the things that we grown up around in both of our childhoods. And then we'd come back to the United States, and we also loved being here. In 1933, my father called and offered Alex the opportunity to run the Bonton Bakery in Missoula. So we moved back to Missoula, and when we left, Alex was interviewed, and they said to him, "How can you leave a job at Chase Manhattan and go to Missoula, Montana?" And he said, "Well, it's just going from one kind of dough to the other kind of dough." So he always had such a great sense of humor, and we loved visiting with each other. We both enjoyed visiting and talking about things, and talking about the state of the world and all sorts of things like that. And because we traveled so much, we knew so many things and had so many varied interests. Alex was invited to join the city band, or to direct the city band, and he did that for over 50 years. And I sat in the front row in my lawn chair, sitting there watching the city band play. One of my favorite things was that the band members would talk about was when Alex wanted there to be more low brass or trombone, he would say, "I want to more rumpa, rumpa, rumpa." And of course, band members would give him more rumpa, rumpa, rumpa. So we enjoyed that very much, and I spent every evening there. The first band show was actually over by where the city hall is now, and it was the bandstand, and they had the concerts there. And so we'd go there for years, and then Alex was so proud of the fact, and so was I, that Missoula had come together and built that beautiful band shell over at Bonner Park. We were thrilled for many, many years to be able to go there and to perform and to lead the community in music. Our beautiful daughter Allegra was born here in Missoula, and went to school here in Missoula, and in 1966, Alex, they sold the Bonton Bakery to Continental Bakeries, and Alex would travel all around the state, and he would check on the things for the bakery, and I would stay home and write, and I would and be with Allegra. In 1991, I was starting to not feel all that great, actually before 91, but I was starting to not feel all that great, and so we decided that this was the time that we should move to California and be with our daughter. So we packed up our belongings, sold everything in our lovely house that was right across from the University of Montana, sold that, left our wonderful neighbors and the community where we had summer ice cream socials and all of that kind of thing. We left that and went to California. And I died in California in 1993. Alex brought me back to be buried here, and he came where family and friends had our last service. Alex lived a number of years longer and died in California, where he is, where Alex remains are still. So, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.